Hello, friends. How are you, gang? Hope that you are great today. There's a beauty in it for you. Good. Hey, Vicki, good morning to you. Hope you're doing great. Karen, good morning to you. Hope you're all right. The music was fun. I know, right. Well, so last night we had our annual chicken and bingo night, which was it's exactly as advertised. We eat some chicken and then we play some bingo, and it is always a fun fellowship time. It's not unlike a lot of times churches will play bingo for a fundraiser, but we actually do it simply as a fellowship event. We have some prizes and some things, and it's so lots and lots of fun. So we had a little musical interlude between some of the games and stuff, and so that was a lot of fun, and it was just a good day. So, good morning, everybody. All right, let's get going this morning. It is the 16th day of July here at 11:11, and I'm glad you're with us and glad you're a part of this journey. I'm going to be on vacation next week, and I wanted to talk a little bit about vacations, and what we call them in church land is Sabbath. That's our fancy church word for taking a little time off. And so I want to talk a little bit just about kind of Bible and what Bible has to say about that, but also really our relationship to it. And I know I've talked about this before, but I think it's constantly, particularly in the world in which we find ourselves, important for us to be reminded of what we consider Sabbath time and taking time for Sabbath and just taking time out. There is no commandment, 10 commandments, maybe you've heard of them. There is no of the commandments, don't murder people, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't covet, these kind of behavioral kind of things. Love the Lord your God, have no other gods before me. And then this commandment that says keep the Sabbath holy. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But just saying, just in comparison, if we think of all the other ones, it's rare. There's no other commandment, there's no other instruction by God that we so boldly brag about breaking. That would not disturb us should we do it the way we do, and we break the covenant of Sabbath. Right? Nobody's saying like, I cheated on my wife 18 times this week. That's nobody's going to rejoice in that. And if you're running in that crowd, get new friends. Nobody's going to say, I stole all of this sort of, I stole so much stuff. It was great. And if you're running with that crowd, get new friends. Nobody's going to say like, I hit 18 people in the head with a hatchet last week. If you do, get new friends. That we understand that these are inherently things that are going to break our relationships, break our trust, break our ability to love, break everything down when we begin to violate these things. And yet we can say, I worked 18 hours worth of overtime last week. It was great. I was able to. I got so much. I got so much done. I was so busy. I worked all this extra time. We rejoice in our breaking of the Sabbath commandment. We are lauded. The world rejoices in us breaking the Sabbath commandment the way it rejoices in us breaking no other commandment. It is terrifying sometimes to think about, and particularly if you're, like me, a good Yankee, you get this, you get the solution to working too much is to work more. That is the message we have always received. And yet the Sabbath commandment, this idea of keeping the Sabbath holy, it starts from the very beginning of creation. It's the very first part of the creation story, right? That we see it, it's in Genesis 2, okay? There's only one chapter earlier. Like, you can't get much more primal and with authority of primacy than this sense of God blessed all of creation. He saw all of creation and saw that it was good, and he rested from his work on the seventh day. God rests on his work from the seventh day, not because God gets tired. God rests from the work of the seventh day because the whole idea of the creation story and the whole idea of the creation is to show us the pattern, to show us the manner in which we are to engage the creation that God has given us. We often don't get that. That the story of creation is the meta story of how we are to engage creation. That we have all these different pieces and parts. We have light and dark. Okay, we got things we know, things we don't know. We have things that are good. We have things that are bad. We have to separate these out. We have to kind of discern these. We have wild animals and we have tame animals. We have to contend with don't treat the wild animal the way that you treat the tame animal. If you bring the wolf, into the house, don't be surprised if it eats you. We can't have the same relationship with these different pieces and parts of creation, and so too can we not have the same relationship with the pattern of creation that ends the week of creation in Sabbath time, in taking a break, that God rested. See, that this resting it's not a thing that, as someone told me a long time ago, and this is particularly true of ministry, because we're the worst in some ways. And this is, and it was an older minister that told me this. This is, if you don't take Sabbath if you don't take a rest, if you don't take Sabbath as a practice, you will take Sabbath as sickness. Think about that for a minute. If you don't take Sabbath as practice, you will take Sabbath as sickness. At some point, your body will take a break. At some point, your soul will take a break. It will decide that you need time, and it will give you time, even if it means you catch a cold and you take a bed for a bit. That these patterns are not just things that we can decide to do or not to do, but they are patterns in which we are inherently that are baked into us, and that our lives are better when we conform to them. Just in the same way that our lives are better if we respect gravity. If we don't respect gravity, and today I decide to leave going through the window on the second floor rather than just go down the stairs as I do each day, it's going to be a very different experience and a very different trip home via the Charlton emergency room. That it is about that, and that Sabbath, just taking a break, taking vacation, taking time away from our labor, from our work, from our life around us, is in fact is baked into the cake of creation. It's baked into this very pattern, and that this is good. This is what when the Pharisees come and beat Jesus up about not keeping the Sabbath because they're harvesting grain, they're walking through the grain and munching on it as they're traveling along. Jesus' response is what? The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. That this pattern was made so that we could be nourished and happy and whole and well, and we could receive all good gifts from heaven that our Father in heaven wants to give us. So that we could be patterned in such a way so that we could, if you're going to catch something, it's really better to catch with open hands as opposed to punch the ball. Somebody's going to throw a ball at you. Not big on ball sports, but I'm told it's easier to catch if your hands are open. That this very basic notion that how we are patterned and how we are ordered, that we are made for this order, and that we're happier and better for this order, and that this order was made for us as a gift to us, not as a thing that not as a burden that we have to keep. And so often we come at these disciplines as burdens that we have to keep. Oh God, I got to take a break off. Oh, my wife's after me. If I don't take some time off, it's going to be awful. Like, this is a gift. In the Hebrew practice, they consider Sabbath a queen to be welcomed in. The Sabbath queen arrives, and that you get to kind of sit in the presence of royalty is to take Sabbath. And that this has an invitation to be a delight to us. Now, that's a challenge for me. In full disclosure, that is a challenge because of all the things, and I know it's a challenge for many of you too, because of all the things that we have to set down in order to take Sabbath. In order to all the things we have to start drawing boundaries, right? We have to say, no, I'm not going to do this on that day. No, I've got a whole list of stuff sitting on my desk that I want to try and get accomplished, but next week I'm not going to get accomplished. That we have to, and that which is the most inherent, which is the most important part of the Sabbath journey of the whole thing. This is the most important part of what the gift of this practice is called to give us. It's not just called to give us, to pattern us, that we get to behave in the way God calls us. It's not that we just get we actually get the ability to take a break. But what it calls us to is the trust in God, that God, in fact, has the order of the universe, and that all of our efforts are not the thing holding up the planets in the sky, that it's not by our concentration that the grass grows on the lawn and becomes green. It's not by our attention that the flowers bloom and that the world takes shape. Now, we have a role in tending all that, and we have a role in participating in it. It's not by our efforts that every relationship we have is right and good. Or, to talk about it for me, it's not by my efforts that this worshiping community here at 282 Rock Street manages to hold itself together for a week if I'm away from it. That, friends, that we all have a story we can tell ourselves about how indispensable and how important, and how if we don't do the thing, if we don't make the money, if we don't attend to the details, if we don't do the right attention, then the flowers won't bloom, whatever the flowers are in our imagination. And that the ability to hand that over to God, that the discipline and the invitation to Sabbath requires of us, that is the great and true gift. That is the true patterning of our lives around creation, is to understand that we are a part of the creation. We are participants with the Creator, but we are not the Creator, and it is not our creation. It is the thing we get to participate in. And if you think about that, how nefarious it can become if we lose that thread, because we can do it to everything in our life. We can mismanage in that way. We can say our friendship, our family relationship, our marriage. Well, that's mine to manage, and that's mine to run. And if I don't run it right, it's going to be broken. That I have to be large and in charge of all of these things, all of these relationships. I have to manipulate them in such a way so that everybody likes me, or that everybody's happy in them. That there's all these different ways for us to come at them, but when we disorder our power, we end up disordering the whole world, and what happens is it becomes a place that goodness can't reside. That the gifts that God wants to give us in those covenantal relationships, they can't hold it. because we're so busy being the creator as a part of rather than a part of the creation. Friends, so I'm going to take a week off, and I hope that you will take some time and take some effort to let this Sabbath reality be a part of your life. That you will understand that whatever the thing is that is keeping you from that break, that is keeping you from that self-care, that is keeping you from that ability to set down the anxiety of all the things that aren't going to get done, or all the things that you think you need to happen, or all the schedules that you think you need to be on, like that you can in fact give them to God, and that you can welcome in the Queen. You can welcome in the royalty. You can welcome in the beauty of a creation that you don't have to run, that you don't have to own, that you don't have to command, but that you can simply participate in and with and be a part of. And that this fighting against the rapids that sometimes feels like our life can instead more likely be the experience of being drawn down the river and being carried to the very beauty of the place that we are headed. Friends, that's my hope for you in the days ahead, that you will know all the good gifts that our Father in heaven wants to give you, because you've been able to set that moment aside with open hands to receive them. Peace and grace to you all, my friends, and we will pick it up not next week, but the week after with another 11:11. All right, I want to say, I see all kinds of people popping in. Good morning, everybody. Linda, good morning to you. Jamie, great to see you. Vicky, hello. Karen, glad you're here. Yvette, hello. James, so glad you're here. Hello, everybody. All right, peace and grace all, and we'll pick it up in a week hence with another 11:11.